But with everybody else, this is kind of the step we want them taking because of like how they responded to the quiz. So with it, just as you were telling me earlier, that a lot of your quizzes are predominantly really more on kind of like the evaluation level. What, like, if you had taken this, what would this kind of look like if kids were actually evaluating? Almost like, where's the next step for these kind of skills? Yeah.
Okay. Like here we just started talking about sculpture, so like we talked about how you can make a sculpture out of almost anything, blah blah blah. So like this is obviously like the first like 4 materials that can be used to create a sculpture is like the lowest. So then I'd bump it up and like either evaluate, like either give them materials and have them create a sculpture with it, or give them an image and have them like pull out the individual materials and then assess how they were put together. Like what was used to attach them, what do you think about what was used to attach them? Is this secure? Is it visually appealing? Do you think this is the best material that could have been used for this sculpture? So that's like the next step there. And we've gotten there like in discussion in class, but not yet like on written assessments. Yeah. And then step-by-step method for creating paper mache is just like their first, like, do you know what paper mache is? Can you do it? And then their next step would be to give them a botched paper mache and ask them what went wrong, because they all have first-hand experience with that. Yeah. Or to actually like have them talk somebody through it, like and explain like why each step goes, like why do you let it dry before you put more on? Why do you need 4 layers instead of 2?
So with these ones that are like kind of material based, it's more of a like we're going to be shifting them to how do you see this working and why is it like done this way? Right. So that way they are, because that gets them into like, I mean, the I's and D's are like, this is identify, this is describe. So this is the one I do want to talk about because I thought like this actually has some strong potency in this one because it was an evaluate one between 2 different materials. Kind of walk me through this one because I think this has a lot of potential of like, you're asking kids to talk about like how to critique. Right. And so what would this look like when they're actually implementing this?
Okay, so art critique is like a really daunting thing and they freak out. So I promised them, I was like, this semester we've got to get through art critique. Like, I promise you I won't just drop you into it. Like we're going to do it step by step. So like we've been talking, that's why I like was freaking out with that class when they couldn't tell me the steps, because we've been doing steps for like since the beginning of the semester. So like 3 weeks now, every day we're like list the 4 steps, like this is like go ahead and describe it because that's the easy part. So but I didn't want to like just have them like describe the method for an art critique because I feel like that gives them no guidance whatsoever, and like a lot of them are visual learners and this is how their worksheets have been laid out. So after we do this step, I'd actually have them critique an image, which we've been doing in class, but I discovered yesterday, the reason I cried in class, that like here, number 1, they're supposed to, sorry, I can't think without the little.
You're fine.
So like this is describe, and then they're supposed to state the subject and the most obvious elements of art. And so yesterday we were doing an art critique, an actual like having them write it out. Yeah. And they were just listing elements of art, but it became apparent that they didn't actually remember what they were. So like they were like, space is really obvious in this. Yeah. And I said, why? And they were like, and they said something that was completely wrong. And so I said, okay, what is space? And they couldn't tell me what space was. We've been talking about it since first quarter, but like they forgot along the way. So the reason I've like broken it back down is to make sure that they're clear like on this is what you do here. And then as we like continue to push forward with the art critique, they'll actually like write out. First, I'll have them like write the name of the step and then just do the step, so that way they can like break it into the 4 sections easily. And then they'll actually finally break down and do a complete art critique where they aren't even listing the steps. They just like write it in paragraph form, like an essay. Which is obviously what we're building up to, where they actually get an image and they can like talk intelligently about it and reference things.
So when they are kind of given an image, thinking about the same kind of problem, and feel free to use like the back of this if it's like easier for you to write. I'm kind of thinking about like what would a problem look like that would actually ask the kids to get to this evaluative stage you are, while still incorporating all these different elements that you want to talk about. Because from what I'm hearing is like, we're working on the evaluative state, but they're losing the basic fundamentals in the process of evaluating. So it's almost like, how do we synthesize and get them thinking about the fundamentals while doing the evaluative process? And it's almost like, I mean, that's kind of what I want to take this almost time for, is like, let's come up with a question that's going to make them do both.
Yeah, I guess that's what I struggle with, because on their worksheets they have, they'll have like, the 4 steps laid out, and they have to fill in the 4 steps, which isn't a problem. And then, and then like for the first one, the elements of art, I'll have like all the elements of art written out, and I'll just say like, circle the ones that are really obvious. So they'll circle the ones that are really obvious, and then like there'll be another blank, and it'll say defend your choices. So then they have to like defend their choices. So I've already broken it down like on a worksheet. And I'm guessing just like would I want to do that on a test?
Yeah. And actually, that's what kind of where I want to push you, is because like that gets them evaluating, but it's almost like they're not synthesizing. Because what it's doing is like, you've got them taking a piece and thinking about it through a certain lens that you provided for them. What we actually want to do is take the lens away and actually have kids kind of like bring it themselves, because they know this is how I should be looking at things when I'm critiquing. So it's almost like, actually this often requires less work on the, like, in my opinion, on the kind of assessment creating stage, but more work on the grading stage. Is if you were to take it and just like, you have, so like, you know, they have some kind of image, and you just simply say, evaluate the image as it relates to all 4 elements of an art critique. And then, but the thing is, you actually spell out how it's going to be graded. So there's a couple ways, of course, doing that. There's providing a rubric right here, and then maybe the rubric says, oh, you'll get a 4 if you talk about every element, and include like the very clear details that are associated with them. Because I know even when you broke these down, there were ways like, how do you describe? You had them do that. Another way of doing it is just by adding a secondary sentence on there that says, be sure to include a clear like evaluative state of all 4 of the elements and every like aspect of it.
Right, and like I guess this comes into like the achievement gap, because like I write questions like that, and the kids will like read the first sentence and not the second one, no matter how many times I like we put pencils down, go over the entire thing. I read it to them and say, make sure you do this, make sure you do this. Or I say, make sure you read the entire question. Like, please read the entire question carefully. Like, no matter what I do, they still don't read the entire question. Or if they read it, they're too lazy to fill it out. Because they know the answer. And when I'll like look at their quiz and go, what? We just talked about this. And I'll go to the kid and I'll be like, what happened? Like, and then we'll talk about it, and they'll tell me the answer verbally. So it's like a writing gap. Like, writing, reading.
That makes sense. So it's almost like, I see this question, it seems overwhelming because it's long and written. I'm going to do what it tells me to do and just get 2. I understand that. I was actually kind of that kid sometimes. Then it's almost like, this is really funny, but it's tricking them to do like multiple things. Don't do it as one problem. Do it as several. So evaluate the image just like that. That's question 1. Question 2 is the rubric. Like, take your evaluation and put it against this rubric. Just circle where you are. 3, defend why that's how you evaluate it. 4, rewrite yours to like move it up. And so the cool thing is, like, this would be a quiz in a day. Look at like all really cool steps, and this is like, the funny thing is, going back to our conversation about low, medium, high blooms, this is almost like low, high, medium, high, high blooms. We're actually challenging them to like work up to that level, because you're obviously going to be teaching, 2 degree to this, so they have it. But now we know that they're being assessed on something that's actually like, hey, I'm holding all the way here. And would definitely convince them. This is, like, it can be daunting, but I actually think, like, the value that it can have will far outweigh it, because you'll have to stop going back and having days like today where either we're crying or like, we have to like, you know, what you got caught having to do.
Which is like take the quiz.
Take the quiz, but we're gonna redo it.
Yeah.
So obviously kids are in a place that are just like, I don't care if I failed this.
Yeah.
But this allows you to say like, sorry, we've gone over this. This is actually really hard. If you ever want to redo this, that's perfectly fine. I might give you half credit back. You don't have to be in a place to just like, let's redo it and it's gonna be okay.
I'm never gonna. I will not give them full credit back because like they
perfect.
knew they had a quiz. Like, we went over it yesterday. I told them yesterday, like, if you have a single question on this, if you are not 100% confident, you need to come in after school, you need to come in before school, you need to call me, you need to email me, like something. And they were all like, oh no, we feel fine. Like, and I said, okay, like study this worksheet that we went over, study this, and like, I guarantee that maybe one of them studied.
Yeah.
So like, that's on them.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
I'll give them another quiz to give them extra points, but I'm not going to take that quiz off the...
Yeah. The cool thing about, like, if we were to shift here, and I like love your feedback on this, you can't really study for this.
Right.
The thing is, you have to know this.
Right.
In order to even be able to, like, touch this. Right. So the cool thing is if we set this bar so high that this becomes, like, the floor, this is, like, the basement. They're going to have to know this if they're even going to, like, potentially succeed.
So would we do this in class before the quiz, like have them put themselves on the rubric, or would that just be a...
Could this serve as a quiz?
Yeah, it could serve as a quiz for sure, but I'm just asking, like, would this be something that I would, like, explicitly teach them?
You might give a day. You might give a day of just, like, this is where we're moving to. And you actually, like, everyone do number 1. Okay, we're going to share some responses to number 1. Everyone try number 2. We're going to leave that one private because you just evaluated yourself. But somebody tell me, you know, or maybe you ask kids to like write, you know, just write very personally about number 3. But have a very clear model, like an exemplar posted at the end.
Is where...
And I made this up. 2 is like, explain why you did this. And then 4 might be...
Why you...
Rewrite, or maybe like give it 4 or 5, which is like, what would you need to do to take this to the next level, and then maybe 5 is like, draft your final version.
Okay, so you're into number 3.
Because I think in due time, you could actually shift it so that you don't have to give this whole structure anymore. Right. You could actually give the whole thing, and kids have gotten to the point that it's nuanced. And one thing that I really find, like, that I really like about this, that I actually, like, this is fine, but what's hard for kids, and actually what I think almost kind of goes in contrast of your classroom. This is about there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. There's not always a right answer, but several right answers. And your class is all about choice.
Yeah.
How do you think kids would respond to something like this as opposed to this?
Probably better.
I mean, what do you think? I mean, scores, in my opinion, might be low at first. But I think, like... Well, I think it's about, like, encouraging the fact that it can get higher.
Right.
Devoting, like, you devote a day to doing this, and then devoting a day to actually, like, revisiting it and talking about it together.
And just, like this I think will work great for most of my classes, but, like, for 4th period, there might be too much writing, and they might just shut down.
Yeah. And so I think that it's, like, you could, it's almost like modify it. We build them up to this kind of level of writing without sacrificing the way we want them thinking. So, like, in 3 sentences or less, evaluate this. Or write a sentence for every one of these elements, evaluating it. But expecting them to know the element already, and just write a sentence. And when a kid's like, this is too hard, your response is, I'm asking you to write a sentence. Like, calm down. And here they're circling something. It's a very smart circle. You know, if the writing is what's limiting them, we'll build them up in the writing element. Give them kind of space to just say it in a few words.
Okay.
But then show them, like, I think it's also, I wonder, do they have a clear vision of mastery themselves? Like, what are other kids writing who are their age, who are doing, critiques? And then maybe they're not invested in it, because I could see, like, them being like, there's too much writing immediately, and say, it might feel that way, but we can get there, getting back to that kind of confidence issue that some of the kids are absolutely going to need.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think this could be really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And so one thing,
it's worth
exactly. And then but this gives us a lot more. It gives us a lot more information on like what kids are thinking and how they're approaching your class than this right or wrong kind of idea. So what I'm going to push you to do next quiz. When do you think you're going to give your next quiz?
It'll be soon because all this material is not done being tested.
Cool.
It's all like 12-hour level.
So
next week probably.
Yeah, early next week. Then let's go ahead and do this. Let's say for Monday. Go ahead and send me a copy of the quiz.
Okay.
By Monday, I'm actually going to be at a conference all next week, but so at some point I'll be off that night. I'll draft some quick notes on it that night, send it back to you, and then let's schedule a time sometime next week or the week after to just call about it and just be like, hey, I just want to know how kids did on it. And if it's like, they bombed, they did, but we at least let's plot what they do and do not know and what your next steps are. Okay. If they did successfully, great, we'll do the same thing and celebrate the fact that kids are enjoying it. But I am going to push you to actually ask some kids, what do you think about this as opposed to this? And get their feedback, because I think that'll help. All right, so Monday, send me a quiz. You'll have feedback that night.
Did you send me feedback for...
I did not.
Okay.
Sorry,
No, that's okay. Just sometimes I delete mass messages.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I delete it.
I was up till 11 working on a lot more of those